Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Community Advisory Task Force number 4 for the Clackamas County Climate Action Plan. It's exciting to be at this point of the process with you all. We have a really exciting meeting planned where we get to work with the content that you guys have been learning about, combined with all of your amazing expertise that you bring to the table. So first of all, I want to get everybody to our mural board, which is where we're going to be, what we'll be engaging with for our conversations. We're not going to use a slide deck. We're going to be using this mural board. And I want to check if there are any folks from the public. Yes, okay, so let's, Katie, if you're willing, would you be willing to share your screen so that folks from the public are also able to see what we're working with? Thank you. And does anybody having any issues in getting onto the mural?
Did you send a link to that?
It should be in the chat.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Do you mind sending it out again? Sorry, I think I joined right after.
Absolutely. Good, I'm seeing some more animals show up. So I want to get everybody oriented. I see a lot of cursors moving around. This is great. With a quick reminder of how we can work on this board together. And I'm finding one piece that's unlocked. So as much as possible, try not to engage with your cursors on the board. Everything should be locked except for those little baby flames. Those are unlocked. And so it shouldn't be able to be moved around. Okay. And I'm going to turn off the cursors. This was confusing for folks last time, but I'm going to hide the cursors for folks. And so you're not going to see all of that movement anymore. So let's go over to the top left corner of the screen. And Katie, if you can zoom in. There's a couple tips, again, for how we're going to be, how to use the mural board. So several of you guys came early. Thank you for getting reoriented to how to use it if you needed some additional support. First things first, this is a really large board. We've got a lot of content here. So what we're going to be doing is moving around the board together. And at points, if you feel like you've missed the cue to follow or to where we are on the board, you can click on the bottom of the screen and you'll see there's a lot of caricatures or drawings of animals, and then there's my human head. You can click on my head and you will be brought to where I am on the screen. Okay. How to find your way around the board. The other ways, if you want to zoom out or zoom in, if you look at the bottom right corner of your screen, there's a box, and above it, there's a line with a minus sign and a plus sign. And there's a circle, and you can use that circle to toggle back and forth in order to zoom in and out. Okay, so that's going to give you a close-up view, which is the best for legibility, for reading the text, and for adding text. And if you want to zoom out and see the work of your colleagues or refer back to an earlier part of the board, you're able to use that toggle switch to move back and forth. You can also use your trackpad or your scroll bar on your mouse to move back and forth. And then most importantly, how to drop a Post-it note. I think everyone is good with this now, but we're going to use double clicking. So this actually, I'm noticing that I don't have that as a prompt here. But that is the easiest way, is to just double click on the screen and you'll be able to add a post-it note. And we'll be doing a lot of idea generation today. So you'll get lots of practice with using those sticky notes to develop ideas. Okay, so moving along. Excuse me for 1 second. I want to walk us through some of the context and grounding for our session today. And we have been beginning our meetings with a land acknowledgement and acknowledging that we're coming together virtually across unceded lands of the Multnomah, Clackamas, Cathlamet, Wasco, Cowlitz, bands of Chinook, Tualatin, Molalla, and many other tribes who have made their homes along the Columbia River, and that their descendants continue to live, work, and act in relationship with this land. And that the work that we do here seeks to honor the people who stewarded their environment for time immemorial. So what are we here to do together today? So moving over to the right. Our purpose today is simple in words, slightly more complicated in practice. Developing the content to be used to generate what we call the low carbon scenario, and we'll unpack what we mean by that. So essentially what we're doing is asking you to bring all of your expertise, sometimes specific to the categories that you let me know where your preferred places to be. And then we will have some time at the end for you to weigh in on categories that you weren't able to give your deepest advice to. So our agenda is pretty simple in that regard, where after we spend some time building some context and getting grounded, you guys are going to have a lot of time in small groups based on those categories that you indicated you had the most expertise within. And then following that, we'll come back to a large group discussion to review the big picture. We also have time for public comment at the beginning of our meeting. So after I just walk through the agenda, we'll have some, and a couple other context laying pieces, we'll have some time to hear from folks from the public. So moving over to the right into those pink squares. And I'll move on here too. By now, you should be fairly familiar with our group operating agreements. So I'm going to leave those there if at any point you want to refer back and focus on some of the tensions. So as you know, we've been naming some tensions that have emerged either in conversation within our meetings or through Basecamp or through reading between the lines. And I want to call in a couple new tensions in anticipation of the conversations that we're having today. So there are a handful that were added, but in essence, we're really balancing this tension related to thinking big in order to think small. So thinking about the bigger picture, or that kind of eagle eye view, in order to have the mouse eye view. So that could come up as a tension for you in a handful of ways, depending on what's more comfortable for you. If you like to be more of the detail space, some of that big thinking could be difficult or uncomfortable. Or if you like to be more in that big picture space, actually you could feel quite good today, because that's mostly where we're hanging out. Also want to call in this idea around linearity in order to understand complexity and interconnection. So we're going to be working in category areas and working within steps of scaffolding our thinking in order to reach our shared goal. And knowing as well that, as we've all discussed as a group, that climate change, climate action is complex, and there's kind of an infinite amount of interconnections between actions and impacts and cause and effect. And today, we're going to be calling in some of that linearity in order to invite and work with complexity as we continue to dig deeper into more details. Okay. I'm going to pause here and ask that we could come off of our shared screen and give an opportunity to the public to ask questions or make comments. And we've got about 10 minutes for that. And I think Katie's going to lead us through this.
Sure. So if you are a member of the community who would like to speak now during public comment, we ask that you raise your hand. You can find the raise your hand feature in the lower portion of your screen. You can also put your comment in chat if you're more comfortable doing that. There are no members of the public raising their hand. So we can close public comment.
Okay, well, thanks for being here, for those of you that are. So let's do a quick round of introductions before we get into the meat of our meeting. Sarah, you want to lead us through that?
I will happily lead that. Thank you. Hello, welcome everyone. So as usual, we'll do sort of our core pieces of introductions. And again, with such a large group, I'll just call on folks to simplify things. And so if you can please give your name, your pronouns, your organization or affiliation if you are not representing a specific organization in the group. And then also to help us get to know each other a little bit better, if you had one superpower, what would that superpower be? So we'll start with the CATF members and then we will include the members of the project team as well. Okay, Ray, can you get us started?
This is Ray Atkinson, he, him. I do transportation planning for Clackamas Community College. I live in Oregon City. My superpower, the top of my head, probably that thing that Hermione Granger uses in Harry Potter with being able to go in 2 classes at the same time. I think that'd be, since I have such a busy schedule, I think it'd be cool to have that tool, that necklace she has. So, to pass it to the next person, yes, J-Raj, or
I'll go ahead and
Okay.
do it to make sure we don't miss anyone, but thank you
That
for the initiative. So let's actually go to Bill Avison. We have 2 Bills.
Unmute. I'm Bill Avison, representing Avison Lumber in Clackamas County. I guess my superpower would be if I could fly like a bird.
Classic. Thanks. Dave.
I am Dave Bugney, a resident of Eagle Creek, Estacada area. And I think if I had a superpower, for those that remember the original Superman movie with Christopher Reeve, where he flies really fast and spins the world backwards and reverses time, and we could go do that long enough to maybe fix this dilemma that we're in now.
Thank you. Nina.
Hi there, Nina Carlson, Northwest Natural, and I think I'd want to shapeshift.
Okay. Sally.
Sally DeCipio, she, her, Westland, member of Clackamas Climate Action Committee. And yeah, my first thought was fly. And my second thought, frankly, is I wish I could wave a magic wand and make everybody care as much as I did about the climate.
Thank you. Laura.
Hi, Laura Edmonds, CEO of the North Clackamas Chamber, and I'm on the County Economic Development Commission and work with the Oregon State Chambers. I think my superpower, I'd actually like to be Storm. Then that way I can control the weather. And then we can fix it all.
Thank you. Dan.
Hi, I'm Dan Hoff. I work at Harper Hoff Peterson Regalis, and also a resident of Clackamas County. Gosh, if I was a superpower, I'd be a superpower general manager so we could figure out how the Blazers could win the championship. So,
Great. Julia.
Hi, Julia Person, Sustainability Manager at Bob's Red Mill, she, her, and how about breathe underwater?
Thanks. Richa.
Hey, Richa, they, she pronouns. I'm a policy director at APANO, Asian Pacific American Network of Oregon. And I would say like stopping time to take a nap. Thank you.
Thanks. Valerie.
Hi, Valerie Pratt. My pronouns are she, her. I'm representing Clackamas County Coordinating Committee. And well, I was going to say my superpower would be flying, but I always thought invisibility would be kind of fun. So you could make comments to people not putting out fires and scare them a little.
Adam. You are still on mute. There we go.
There we go. Can you hear me? Yeah. Adam Rack, he, him, operations manager at Cooper's Hall Winery up in Portland and down near Malala. I'm going to go general and just say fix problems. I'd like to just magically be able to fix problems. Seems a bit broad, but that'd be great.
Great. Jeff.
Hi, Jeff Rubin, he, him. I'm in Wilsonville, organizationally unaffiliated. I think my superpower would be turning every personal interaction into a Zoom meeting. Just kidding. I think I'll settle for having my control panel automatically know when I want to be muted or unmuted.
I think that first one would have been a super villain power.
Hey, introvert.
All right, Jay Raj.
Hey everyone, my name is Jay Raj Singh. I use they and he pronouns. I'm the Clackamas County Chapter Director at Unite Oregon, and my superpower would be a cat whisperer, to be able to talk and communicate with my cats.
Awesome. Bill Street.
Bill Street, he, him, in the unincorporated portion of Clackistan between Gladstone and Milwaukee, a member of the Forest Advisory Board for Clackamas County, retired union organizer. And I think superpower, if there was such a thing, I'd like to be a universal catalyst, such that if something could happen just by being able to make it happen faster, would be better for my mental health. Thank you.
Thank you. Kim.
Kim Swan, I work for all the cities and water districts that get their drinking water out of the Clackamas River, and I like to fly.
Thank you. Alicia.
Alicia Trainer, she, her pronouns. I work for Portland General Electric. I'm the environmental policy manager for PGE, and superpower would be teleportation. So I can just go anywhere I want, whenever I want, especially in the last year and a half.
Awesome, thanks. Ed.
Yeah, Ed Wales, Canby, Oregon. I retired from Energy Trust of Oregon. If I were to have superpower, it would be being able to see everywhere at the same time.
Nice. Cassie.
Hi, I'm Cassie. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the liaison to the Youth Advisory Task Force, and I live in Boring. And my superpower would also be teleportation.
All right, thank you. All right, and now we're going to shift over to the project team. I will kick us off. So I'm, again, Sarah Allison. I use she, her pronouns. I am a sustainability analyst here with Clackamas County. And classically, I've gone with shapeshifting, but the time manipulation ones were really attractive. So I'm going to switch over to like being able to stop time for a nap was a great one. I'm definitely stealing that. All right, and I'm going to shift over to Ellen.
Ellen Roglin, she, her pronouns, community relations specialist in Clackamas County. And I think I would go for time travel because I love history and I might be scared of the future, but I think time travel would be great.
Awesome. Eben.
Hi, everyone. Eben Polk, he, him. I am the supervisor for the county's sustainability and solid waste program. And I think it would be great to have like the powers of a fish, which Julia, maybe you said something similar, but go anywhere and breathe underwater.
Awesome. Katie.
Interestingly enough, we had a staff debate in PGA today about Captain Planet, which is a cartoon from the 90s. And yes, he saved the world. And I announced I wanted the heart ring, which meant that I could communicate with the animals. So I'm going to stick with that.
Nice. Dr. Present.
Hi, everybody. Dr. Sarah Present. I am the Public Health Officer for Clackamas County, as well as a family physician in our Beaver Creek Clinic. I'm having this thought today about having like a compassion love ray that can make everyone around me that I point it to feel heard, loved, and cared for. That's what I want.
I love that. Cheryl.
Hi, everybody. It's nice to be with you today. Cheryl Bell, she, her. Although I am comfortable with them, they. I am Assistant Director of Development for the department, so I get to assist on this project. This is a hard one for me. Super big Marvel fangirl. It's a big thing for me. So I'm going to go with having the Captain America skills, kind of like in the what if that it's on me, and get to play around with that.
Thanks. Monica.
Hi, folks. I'm Monica Cuneo, she, her, they, them, and I'm the facilitator of this process and the engagement process with the Climate Action Plan. And I'm going to go with, I played this game with my 4-year-old a week or two ago, and he said that he wants the power to make anything fun. I'm going to go with that.
Nice. All right. And Jeremy, wrap us up.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jeremy Murphy, he, him pronouns. I'm in Vancouver, British Columbia. I'm the principal with Sustainability Solutions Group, leading the technical process of the work on this project. And I think I often go with omnipresence or telepathy, but recently I've really enjoyed the idea of having perfect improvisation, to have the skill I need at any given moment to excel at that thing, which just comes from having to do so many different things lately, I think. Perfect improvisation is my final answer.
Love it. All right. Thank you all so much for sharing a little bit more about who you are, and I will pass things back to Monica to keep us going on our agenda.
Sweet. Thanks. Okay, so back up on the mural board, and it sounds like there are actually no members of the public here any longer. So why don't you go back, and we're not going to share the board for the whole group. So just go back to your link, and why don't we drop it in the chat again in case anybody hopped off. Make sure we get back there. And meet me in the center of the screen. And we're going to talk a little bit about what's coming next. Okay. See some folks joining back. So I wanted to give you guys a little bit of forecasting, so you know what we're doing today leads into future work and what you can expect to come out of this first phase of CATF meetings and also when you can expect to get key materials and additional information, so you know when it's coming. So if you look along the top, we've got our few meetings, and starting with the meeting our last meeting at the end of August, meetings 4, 5, and 6, 7, and 8. And so here we are at meeting number 4 on September 9th. And the first row looks at the CATF meeting topics. These are the kind of the core pieces of the agenda. So what are we discussing as a group? The documents represent what you can anticipate getting in preparation for the next meeting. So not necessarily some of the documents that we will be discussing at that particular meeting. And then the engagement line shows how we're progressing through those conversations. So what this shows is that we started in our last session with you guys getting grounded in the business as usual emissions, and that now we're moving into the space of what are the key things that need to change in order for us to reach our target goal. And we're going to be moving through granularity and detail over the next several sessions. So what comes out of today's meeting will give us what we need in order to start to develop strategies. So what are the strategies that would go into particularly the implementation plan, and what the county would be responsible for carrying forward, at least in the first few years. We'll do that for the next 2 meetings. In 2 meetings from now, so meeting number 7 in mid-October, we're going to review what we're calling the low carbon scenario. So what you guys generate today, and don't worry, we'll give you a lot more detail about what we mean by high-level outcomes and high-level actions and target outcomes. But what you guys generate today is the content that SSG will use in order to develop that model. And then at our last meeting, we'll get prepared for external engagement. And that will be taking all of that content to date and knowing how we're interacting, what we're sharing, and what type of feedback we're asking for from the public. Okay. Good enough for now. I wanted to give you this so that you get a sense again of where are we, and where are we headed, and how some of these things stream together. And of course, when we get into the details of each of these, there's more details, but this is a high level where we're going. Good enough for now. Any questions? Feel free to speak into the room or pop into the chat. Okay. Well then, why don't we start actually with Jeremy giving us a quick synopsis of just what is this low carbon scenario that I keep saying? And perhaps there was a little bit of mention at our meeting on August 26th, but let's get grounded in what is the low carbon scenario, and then we'll talk about the activities that we're going to do today to generate the content to feed into it.
Sure thing. So you'll remember from the last meeting, we talked about kind of where Clackamas County is going in terms of its future energy use and emissions production, and how that compares to kind of present day and recent past energy use and emissions production. So we have that as our kind of reference scenario. We have the business as usual scenario, which we've modeled, which tells us what we can expect if we kind of keep going the way we're going with the activities that we're doing. Activities meaning, using energy in buildings, in your transportation, in our daily lives, the activities that we do every day. The low carbon scenario is the alternative. So it's the collection of actions that we will take and that we will investigate with you and establish to reduce emissions in the future, to be more energy efficient in the future. So the low carbon scenario is ultimately a suite of actions that we will model to determine how best to reduce our emissions substantially over the next 30 years. And that scenario will include actions in the building sector, actions in the transportation, waste, energy sectors, all the sectors across the county, which we're going to be discussing today in our small groups. And it will tell us not just the extent to which we have to take all of those actions and the energy use and emissions changes that come with them, but also the timing of them, kind of when we have to implement them, as well as to what extent at different times over the next 30 years to achieve targets that we will set. So that is a brief description of the low carbon scenario. We'll be developing the assumptions and the actions with you and modeling it in the near future.
Okay, think of that as kind of a teaser framework. So everything that we're we've got one hand raised from Alicia.
I can wait until you're done too. It's fine. I just have a question.
Ask if you have questions about what Jeremy just mentioned.
Yes, I did.
And then we're going to transition into preparing for the activity. So go ahead.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So this is, I unfortunately missed the last one. I was on vacation and I'm really bummed to have missed that presentation. It sounded like the modeling that's been done and presented is just current emissions. So I was curious if some of the information presented last week also factored in recent policies that have been enacted in the state that will really impact trajectory. And if that was presented, because that's like policies already on the book. And really what I'm talking about is HB 2021, that just provides the pathway for the electric sector to decarbonize. So I was just curious if that modeling has been done yet and presented, because that will provide context of where we need to focus in to meet the interim goal and the 2050 goal, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. And I mean, I have to admit that I'm in the same boat as you, Alicia. I was also not present at the last meeting because I was on vacation. But I feel like maybe you mentioned that at a previous meeting, or someone did anyway, and so we have been looking into state legislation. The question for us is always how to include it in the modeling. So we have done our kind of business as usual reference case modeling for the next 30 years. The issue with any sort of legislation, whether it's state or county or municipal level, is it going to happen? Like, what is our certainty with which it will actually carry out? And so that's always a consideration in the modeling, is do we include it as kind of a business as usual action, or does it fall maybe more under the low carbon scenario action? The business as usual would be, we definitely know these things are going to happen, and we're going to model them as the reference case. And then the low carbon scenario is, these are the things we really want to happen, and we need to make extra efforts to make sure they happen. So,
I mean, I would argue that legislation that passed the legislature and signed by the governor might be a pretty good done deal. A governor's executive order might be a little more, because that could be pretty easily changed by the next governor. So, I mean, and you and I, Jeremy, you and I can also touch base offline to have to pull everybody into this conversation. But yeah, it is.
And I would concur that there are off ramps with the 2021. So it is sure unless other things happen. So I'd love to be in on that conversation as well.
Sure, it's a great point. Thanks.
There's an outstanding question on that questions and answers document. I think it might have even been yours, Alicia, around how policies are going to interact with various stages in the modeling, as well as once we get, what we generate today will be then brought to the modeling work, but we still are going to be doing a lot of work around contextualizing strategies. And you weren't at the last meeting, but the group spent a lot of time engaging with the prioritization criteria. And there is a criteria there too that says, what do we know about the context? What do we know about the political appetite? And so I think we want to find ways to weave it in and for you to speak that into the room. And if it makes sense to also have separate conversations, that seems great too.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. I'm sorry I missed last week.
It's okay. Any other clarifying questions? Okay. So moving down on the mural board, I'm going to get you oriented to what we're going to do today together. So Jeremy just outlined what the low carbon scenario is. And I want us to get in the right frame of mind and at the right kind of level and type of thinking in order for us to generate the needed material for SSG to bring back and integrate into that modeling. So before we get into the technical language that we're going to be using today, I want us to practice with an example. So if you're looking at that mountain on your mural board, I want to imagine that we are making plans to summit Mount Hood together. And that we know the destination, we know that we need to get to the summit, and that we need to develop a plan in order to reach the summit together and safely. So as a first step, does anybody in here backpack or like to go hiking? Yeah, I'm a backpacker. As a first step, whenever I'm thinking about taking a trip, I know about where I want to go. And then I think about, okay, what needs to happen or what needs to be true in order for this trip to be successful. So for backpacking, it might be that my body needs to be prepared to hike several miles and to carry a backpack. The route that I'm going to take needs to be safe, and that my energy needs to be able to be sustained so that I can do the hike. So with each of these, in order to safely and successfully summit this mountain, we're not articulating how these things are achieved. We're just naming that they need to be true, right? Well, I need to be prepared. I need to have food. I probably need to rest. And I want to feel safe. I don't want to slide off the mountain. So to make any of these true, we need to then break it down to think about what actions are needed to achieve them. So that could be, so you can follow along on those squares to the left of the mountain. But for a prepared body, for my body to feel prepared to do this, I'm going to need to exercise a little bit at least before leaving. I'm probably going to need to research some routes to find out what feels safe. And I'm going to probably need some food and water, at least access to it or to pack it in. And then from here, we begin the conversation of what I need to do in order to exercise, in order to research, and in order to plan for these meals and water sources along the way. Welcome back. So then we consider how much exercise do I need to do? And do I need to read trip reports and review maps and understand how long am I going to be out there? And is there going to be water sources along the way? Can I have food shipped in? So as you can see, we're getting from our destination or our summit in mind and moving down the mountain in more and more detail. And so it's what we're calling backcasting. So if you look to the right of the mountain, we're working with these key terms today. So we have our goal, and in the mountain analogy, it's that we're summiting this mountain. In our work together on the CATF, it's that we're carbon neutral by 2050. From there, we're working with target outcomes. So what are the shifts or what are those things that need to occur or need to be true in order for us to reach our goal? And at this point, we're not asking how it will be done. We're just asking what it's going to take. What is it going to take for us to reach the top of this mountain together or for us to reach this goal? And from there, we're developing what we're calling high-level actions. So they kind of work in two directions. They speak to the target outcomes because they describe what are the areas of action that need to occur in order for those target outcomes to be true. So in order for me to feel prepared, for my body to be prepared, I need to exercise. I still haven't described how I'm going to exercise or what my plan is for actually doing it, but I know that it's true. I know that it needs to exist. And then from there, those high level actions also create the parameters and the containers to create the strategies within. So what are the key strategies that need to occur in order to reach those high level actions? So beginning with the end in mind, we're moving down the mountain. So today we're operating at about the 6,000 foot view. So if you cut Mount Hood in half and we're looking up towards the peak, we're like at about the Timberline Lodge level. And we're talking about the target outcomes to reach the goal and the high level actions to reach the target outcomes. And that's what we're going to be spending most of our time doing together today, the rest of our time. So if you continue to scroll down the center of the mural board, we have an example of how this scaffolding looks in relationship to the content that we're working with. We've got our goal of carbon neutrality, one target outcome within the buildings category could be that buildings are carbon neutral. A high level action that gets us there is that buildings use less energy. Well, how is that going to happen? Well, then we develop a strategy around old buildings are retrofitted. And how is that going to happen? Well, that shows up in the work plan. One step. And so if you think of it as a pyramid, we have less detail at top, and as we get down to the base of the pyramid is where we're going to have more ideas and more content. But again, today we're looking at the top half of the mountain. And in meeting 5 and 6, we're talking about the strategies that will drive the work plan. If while we're doing this work in your small groups and you start to get kind of tangled in your mind about, well, what level is this? Is this an outcome or is this an action? Or maybe I'm really thinking in strategy. Come back to this table of what is a target outcome. It's a description of the end point that must be achieved, must be reached in order to achieve our goal. What are those changes? What are those shifts that need to occur? And then what are the areas of activity that make those target outcomes possible? What it isn't, so what a target outcome isn't, is something that doesn't feel essential to achieve. So something that might maybe like a fun to have, but it isn't absolutely essential, or it's an endpoint stated in really ambiguous terms. Like, well, maybe a couple buildings will be energy efficient, maybe. We want to speak with certainty and related to what's really needed. And same with high level actions. So we're looking for categories of action. What it isn't is a specific strategy. So this is where we're all ready to support each other in thinking through and how to like kind of tease these pieces apart as we do this work together in small groups. And know that anything that gets written on the mural board will be captured and we'll do our best to use it. But if you get tangled, the facilitators, there's staff facilitators to help you, will help guide us through the conversation. So any clarifying questions about this kind of lead up, and then I'll give you some instructions of what we're going to do in small groups. Feeling good? Feeling ready? I see one head nod. Can I at least get some thumbs up? Okay. Great. Okay, so here's what's going to happen. You guys provided preferred categories to work within via Basecamp and email. These are areas that you come to the conversation with a lot of content and subject matter expertise. These categories are based on modeling. So again, we know that there's interconnection between these topics, but this is to help organize ideas in relationship to the modeling needs. So we're going to start with focusing on those target outcomes. So again, the outcomes, the shifts that we know need to occur in order to reach carbon neutrality. And I'm going to give you a pop quiz. What are they not? Edgar, I feel like I saw your face move, but I didn't. You might be muted. You don't know. Go ahead, Valerie.
Strategies.
Huh?
Weren't they not strategies?
Yes, they are not the how. This is not the time where we go, oh, there's no way that could ever happen. That's really not feasible. There's no way that our governor would ever support that or our community would support it. The question now is what's needed? Okay, what's it going to take to reach this ambitious goal of carbon neutrality in 29 years or less by the time we start? So you're going to break up into small groups. You're going to, if you scroll over to the right side of the mural board, I'm going to release everyone. You see several tables with the category names and your names listed. So find which group you are a part of, and you're already grouped in these small groups. So you'll join the staff facilitator, and you're going to review the draft target outcomes. So SSG and Clackamas County have spent time based on all of the expertise that SSG brings to the table in developing CAPs with other communities, combined with what we know is unique with Clackamas County, to develop a starting point. So these are ideas right now of the things that need to occur within these categories to reach carbon neutrality. And what we want you to do is silently review them for a few minutes, just get your head wrapped around what's there. Then as a group, ask each other any clarifying questions. So if there's a piece of, if there's a sticky that you're just like, I don't know what this means, this is new technical language, or I don't understand it, speak that into the room. You guys help each other understand what's there. If you're still lost, or if you still need help, then you're going to call us into the room, and the facilitators know how to do that. And then you're going to have time to add ideas with additional stickies. So if there's, you're going to have opportunity to strengthen what's there. So if there's revisions that need to occur, and then you can also add new stickies. So there might be ideas that haven't come up yet that your group generates together. Okay, and I think we'll have about, I need to write my clock. We're like right on time. So we're gonna have about 35 minutes for this section. And then we will, and we'll be checking in with you all and see how we're feeling. And then we'll take a break and move on to the next section. I just saw a chat come in. So Valerie, you are in the transportation group. So if you look in the right side of the mural board, there are all these tables. You don't see tables on the mural board? Does anybody else not see tables on the mural board? That's really interesting. So Valerie, why don't you hang back and let's see if we can figure out what's going on for you.
Valerie, are you still in the test mural board that they started at 1240? You might have to re-access.
Katie, do you mind just dropping the link in there and making sure? And Valerie, you're on mute, so we can't hear you.
I'm not seeing it. I have a very small laptop, so it's terrible to see the screen anyway, but I'm not seeing anything. I'm seeing some posted and then those, kind of rules of the road, listen and stuff, and that's it. I've scrolled all over it, and that's all I have.
Okay, so Valerie, let's see if someone in your room is willing to share the screen with the group, and so that you can at least follow along.
Okay.
Okay.
How do I get to the group?
So that's the next step. So
okay, thank you.
Garrett, can you please offer people
yes,
the breakout room?
I will be opening the breakout rooms. You should all be pre-assigned. Just say yes, you want to go there. Hopefully you make it onto the other side. Staff recorders, don't forget to hit the record button. That's Cheryl, Sarah, Dr. Present, Evan, and Ellen. Hit that record button when you get in, please. I will send a broadcast message just to remind certain people, Ellen, to do that. All right, here we go.
I wanted to welcome 2 members from the public who joined while you were in your work groups. And Katie, are you back with us?
I am.
Should we give them just a chance to introduce themselves?
Sure. Jamie Lorenzini, are you here?
I am. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm super interested to listen to your agenda.
Excellent. Welcome. And then Commissioner Savas, are you here? He may have stepped away. I think he stepped away, Monica. He said he would join us back after the second breakout session.
Okay, excellent.
Monica, will you make sure to go over what the next steps are so that Jamie hears, because I don't think she heard the plan.
Absolutely.
Sure.
And maybe Katie, could you share your screen so then Jamie knows the format that we're using. And Commissioner Savas, if he does pop in, can see it as well. Okay, so I saw a lot of great activity. It was fun to pop into your rooms and hear the conversation. Some of it sounded complicated and that you were really grappling with how to make sense of the context of Clackamas County and how to mesh that with what is needed in order to reach this goal. So you guys were all right on target. And now we're moving into this conversation about high-level actions. And I have a feeling, just given what I heard, that some of you were naturally dabbling in what might be a high-level action. And you also may have naturally been dabbling in what might be a future strategy. And that is all good. I was really encouraging the facilitators, and I would encourage all of us too, that ideas that feel like you feel valuable and needed for this work, just capture them here, because we will thread this through into future conversations, and SSG will take what is here in order to make sense for the low carbon scenario. All right, so now I want to preface and get you prepared to work in the mindset now of the high level action. So you've just grappled with what is needed in order to achieve our goal. And now we want to ask the question, what are the areas of action that need to occur in order to reach that target outcome? So I mentioned earlier that the high level actions kind of work in 2 directions. Right now, we're using them to look up towards the mountain, up towards the peak. So how do these high level actions, what are those areas of action that need to occur to enable the target outcomes? In our future sessions, we'll use them to guide the strategy development. How do we make those areas of action successful? Okay. So in this next phase, we're going to do a process that's very similar. We're going to get back into your groups. You're going to review what we had initially paired up. So we were thinking of the target outcomes in relationship to a high level action. And I acknowledge that if you guys moved your stickies around, or if you changed the wording, it might also change the relationship with that draft high level action. That's okay, because this is something that we're co-creating and co-generating together, and these were drafts. So read through those high level actions. If they no longer have a relationship with the target outcome, consider if there's a relationship somewhere else, or consider if that language needs to shift in order to be in relationship to it. And then we're also raising the bar a little bit and presenting a challenge that we want you to create at least one additional high-level action in addition to what we presented or what we shared as drafts. So that means for the pink stickies that exist, try to think of at least one additional one. So for each target outcome, try to get at least 2 high-level actions, 2 categories of action that would help to make that target outcome real. So you're going to get into your small groups, review the content that's there that might include reacquainting yourself with the target outcomes just doing a little bit of matching and then asking ourselves again, what needs to be revised, what needs to be strengthened, and what needs to be added in order to make that category comprehensive. Feel good? We'll have about 35 minutes and we can toggle up or down depending on how quickly you guys move. So I'll be popping in the groups again, and feel free to give us a blue flame if you have questions, or if you're struggling with anything. And we'll come back and we'll have an opportunity for you guys to zoom out and see what everybody's provided and provide a little bit of cross-pollination and thoughts and comments on the other groups. Sound good? Okay. Here comes your invite.
All right, and staff recorders, do not forget your job is to hit the record button. And Dr. President, let me know again if there is an issue. Opening the rooms now.
So we will be organizing this and figuring out between the target outcomes and the high level actions and what you have offered in your notes, comments, and questions column, what we can harvest from there for SSG to then go and use for their modeling, and then what we want to capture in order to contribute and guide and give parameters to the conversations around strategies. So this content isn't going away, but we will clean it up and reorganize it, and you'll have opportunities then to take those next steps and to delve into more detail. The part of the timing is that SSG needs some time to then take these ideas and produce the low carbon scenarios. That's part of why we're getting this information to them now, and then they can hang out with it for about a month in order for us to then bring it back to our meeting in mid-October.
If it was possible for them to, if we could maybe even get through the weekend to look at this and provide things, because for our group, for example, the Forest and Agriculture group, ours is still a work in progress. And I think that we could do a much better job and do a better service for the consultant if we could organize it a little better and further elucidate the idea so they have a better idea where we're coming from. Because right now, I think that some of them are still a little nebulous.
Okay. Jeremy, how does that feel for you?
Totally fine. Yeah, it feels good.
Okay.
So to that end, if we could somehow get, for example, just using ours as an example, the ag forestry group, if we could somehow take this chart and get it into a PDF or whatever makes the most sense, email it to us, and then I can sit down and work with that, or something that is tangible. I could spend a couple hours.
Well, this link will stay live for you, so you guys can come back to it. And why don't you use this as a format to interact with? Does that work for you, David?
So, I was born 30 years too early. So I'm just thinking, so did you mean then that this would be on, I could access this through that link, and it would be like Google Drive or whatever. I can put my comments on there and then other people see it in real time. Is that what you're saying?
It's all in real time. Yep.
Just like we're doing today.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
So you can come back to it and organize it and add thoughts, and you can, you could ping your group mates and say, take a look when you're done, or ask them questions through Basecamp.
And speaking of that, I think it would be helpful if let's say we just, hypothetically said, okay, we've got till next Monday or Tuesday to get this work done. It'd be helpful if we could get contact information with our other co-members so that we could talk to them, and because, you can't just do stuff via pen and pencil. I mean, you got to be able to talk to folks and flush ideas out. It's much more efficient.
So 2 ways you can communicate via Basecamp. And I think also if you guys all want to offer consent to each other to share email addresses. And I'm looking at Ellen and Katie just to make sure that that's cool. I think that's feasible. Getting a head nod.
So to that end, then I would like to, I already have Sally's email address. I'd like to have Bill Avison's and Adam Rack's and Sarah's address, Sarah President's address, if they don't mind. That way we've got a form, you know, a way to talk to one another.
If people are comfortable, we're happy to send out and put on Basecamp for all of you a list with all of your email addresses so you can reach each other. But if somebody's not comfortable with that, then we would not put their email address there.
Does that make our email addresses public record, or are they already public record?
It makes them public record. I don't think they are public record because it wasn't on the material that has went to the Board of Commissioners.
Well, we can keep that information off of Basecamp if we choose. We could just put together a document and send it out to you via email. That's the roster with everyone's email address. I see one head nod.
Fine with me.
Okay.
If anybody is concerned, please feel free to send an email in private before the end of the day so that we can respect your wishes and not have to have you out yourself in the group.
Monica, we had a question similar to what David has been raising from Bill Street earlier. We didn't get to finish our task. Can we do it later? And I'm just wanting to know, Bill, if you're there, I can't see you, but has your question been answered? It's a yes.
No.
Okay.
My question has not been answered.
What's your question?
Well, we were similarly to what was said about the forestry group, which is this is a work in progress. We didn't even get through all our green stickies. So we have much, I don't think it takes much time, but we have much more work to do. And I'm hearing negotiation going on about timeline with the consultant versus us. I've heard some conversation about, do we have till Monday or Tuesday? I mean, is there any period of time after this closes for us to, in our little group, finish our task in a way that does not harm or disadvantage the work that has to follow? If so, what is that window of opportunity?
Jeremy, I'm giving you Zoom eyes.
Similar to puppy dog eyes, but with more intensity, I suppose. Is a week enough time to come back to this and to comment? I'm fine with giving a week or some reasonable amount of time anyway, but not like 2 or 3 or 4 weeks. How about a week?
1 week's fine with me.
Yeah.
Works for me.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay, so if anybody is concerned, send us an email about the roster. Otherwise, we will share email addresses and you guys can self-organize. And I will commit to sending out an email with that mural link again, just in case things get closed. You can have it there. And I really appreciate your investment. This is just going to make a better product. So in terms of questions and comments on what's here now, is there anything that we want to discuss as a group, or does it feel more imperative that it feels too unfinished to review and have a conversation?
I wouldn't be comfortable with our group stuff because it really needs to be massaged a little bit. And I think it'd be more efficient that way for everybody else to look at a more refined product. And like I say, we'll have something, I know, in a week. And
yeah. Jeremy, I wonder if you can speak a little bit about, I asked Jeremy to review what was here and to think about what is needed for the low carbon scenario, and because I asked him to provide red flags if there was anything that was offered that wouldn't be able to be modeled or wouldn't fit into a future conversation. So I wonder if, Jeremy, you can offer some comments that might offer some assuagement of concerns amongst the group.
I can. So I took a look at all the comments that have been made across all of the groups, and I think it's looking really good. There's nothing that I've seen that we can't accommodate in the modeling for any of these sectors. Mind you, some of the things, they're not, direct elements in the model. Like, we don't have something as specific as, what would line drying clothes instead of using the dryer to dry clothes do across the county. If we were to do an action like that, but in the case where, say, that is an example of an action that somebody put, although that would be more of a strategy than a high level action, I guess, we would just kind of translate that into its effect in the model. So yeah, from what I'm seeing, people have really great ideas that we have modeled before on other projects, and other ones that we can translate to be accommodated into the model. So I think it's looking good. Yeah, there's nothing that I can say that would be negative about anything that has been put in here so far.
So know that as you're thinking in the next week, that what is here is great and it's totally usable. And I really respect your desire to want to continue to engage with it and get it to a place that you feel comfortable. And today is Thursday the 9th. So why don't we can we say, Jeremy, by Friday of next week, that's our target to have something else to share.
Perfect.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Monica, you said you'd send the mural link out in an email as well?
Yes.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Can I jump in with a comment? And this might be something you want to elaborate on, but I've noticed one of the things that came up in our group, and also I see a comment or two from Jayraj along these lines on the mural, is about adaptation and resilience actions. We've intended that those be part of this, identifying those kinds of actions be part of the scope of the project, but they presumably won't be modeled. So I just wanted to acknowledge that some of those questions are coming up, and invite you to elaborate a little bit more about how those kinds of ideas would be captured.
Yeah, sure thing. And your assessment is correct, I guess, Evan, and consistent with how we've been approaching the project, which is mostly, a climate change and emissions mitigation project, but acknowledging that emissions mitigation and climate adaptation kind of go hand in hand often. We will address some adaptation elements kind of through the mitigation actions that we determine with you all. So when we get into the low carbon scenario development, when we get into refining our high level actions and our strategies, at that point, we'll kind of qualitatively address the adaptation elements or characteristics of those actions and how we want to implement them. So we won't be modeling them like we are in terms of emissions reductions for the actions. That's kind of an entire additional exercise, I would say. But we will be addressing them kind of as like co-benefits to taking emissions mitigation actions. So more of a qualitative approach.
And I would add one thing, just given my growing understanding, that when we get to the conversation about strategies, that's a great space and kind of level to invite strategies that build resilience and are increasing adaptive capacity. So I think that's going to come up differently in different categories, but there's a time and a place for it. And well, like Jeremy said, it's not going to go into the modeling, so it's not the focus in today, but carry that into our conversations in meetings 5 and 6. Go ahead, Ed.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm just wondering, maybe I missed this earlier, but I don't think I've heard much discussion about how our goal of reducing emissions, the net, well, not net zero, but by 2050. I don't know that I've seen or heard anything about our human well-being being evaluated in all of this. I don't think I've seen or heard anything about people's mental health being evaluated in all of this, as we live through this experience. And I don't think I've seen anything about how our actions affect other creatures that we depend on to live. So I'm just, I don't know. Is anybody illuminate that?
You mean how? Go ahead, Jeremy.
I was just going to say that it sounds like Ed is volunteering maybe to write that section of the report for us, hopefully. But I used the term co-benefit when I was just talking about the adaptation elements of the emissions reductions actions that we'll be looking at. And all of the elements that you just listed off, Ed, are those co-benefits of action or co-considerations. So we will be addressing those later in the project when we kind of get into more of the details of the actions and the strategies, in addition to how they affect certain adaptation considerations. We'll also do kind of a qualitative pass on, well-being, physical health, et cetera.
May I also mention that there is a lot of work in the county, particularly in the public health department, to work on metrics around mental health and climate change, around other public health measures that's separate from this plan that's really focused on decreasing emissions. There's a lot of other work in the county that's looking at how climate change affects our population and addresses it in some other creative ways.
Follow up on Sarah's comments. In our group, some of the side benefits we'll be looking at if appropriate public policies adopted, that there will be other, biological magnification effects, increased species diversity and whatnot, that we hope to elucidate more than our proposals.
And David was in the food, ag, forestry group, so just for context. Any other comments? This is nice just to open the floor. All right. Well, great work today, you guys. I know it was a lot of thinking and doing, and I appreciate you all showing up fully and using even that energy carrying forward to continue developing what you started. I look very excited to see what comes out of this. And again, we'll be using these notes to seed our conversations in meetings 5 and 6. So this is not the last time you'll see a lot of this content, and we're going to continue to build. So our next meeting is on September 22nd. Third, September 23rd. It will likely be the full time as well, 1 to 4. We will definitely be using Mural again as a way to generate content and work in small groups. And the hope is that we have more opportunities to cross-pollinate between category topics. And with that, we're good. So if you, before leaving, could offer in the chat something that worked well for you today, something you'd like to see different for future meetings, that will help me be responsive to what works for you and how we can structure these meetings to be effective. And any major questions that you're leaving with today. And after that, you're free to go.